Good day, y'all. So, this is what morning looks like here in Portland today, nearing the end of October. Beautiful colors still out. Neighborhood, it's raining. This light drizzle that we get all winter long, and it's just started. Beautiful trees down there. So, yeah, good day. Nice to see you guys. Hope you're having a wonderful Friday. Weekend's about to start for a lot of you guys working that 9 to 5. A lot of people walked away from their jobs the past few months. They call it the Great Resignation. It's unprecedented, really, what's going on right now. People just leaving their work. There's not really a lot of viable options out there for a lot of people that are looking to, work at a brick and mortar or go into a job somewhere. So a lot of people are stepping in entrepreneurial endeavors. I know I did that back in the beginning of 2020, and right after I started this whole global pandemic, lockdown, whatever you want to call it, started. And these are totally unprecedented times. I don't think at least 5, 6, 7, probably ever generations have ever seen anything of this magnitude as far as affecting the entire world. This is a global economy that we're in right now with a global pandemic. And so everything seems very uncertain to a lot of people, and that's totally understandable. There's a lot of people that are afraid. There's a lot of people that are optimistic too, but I would say that the collective of people who are tuned into the news media are being fed high amounts of fear, and because of a lot of uncertainty, there's not a lot of solution-based. We're not being showed a lot of solutions or showed being a lot of things that we can do out of fear, and that's a big reason why I don't watch the news, is because the idea of if it bleeds, it leads. People are just frightened by watching television, and we've normalized sickness, and we've normalized violence, sexualized violence in our society through these mass media outposts. There's about 6 media companies that these conglomerates run the show. They run public opinion, and basically in America here, the pharmaceutical industry, the telecommunication industry, the banks, they're running the show, and most people aren't aware that this is what's going on in the world right now. And if you speak out against it, hopefully you can use a platform like this and they won't censor you. If you're not big enough, they won't. And I noticed since that whole whistleblower incident with Facebook, I don't know if you guys follow the news, but there was a whistleblower event where it was on 60 Minutes, which is, it's a produced program of news. And then the next day, Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp, which are all owned by Facebook, all went down for maintenance or something. You're not getting the real story, you guys. So you obviously have to use your own intuition and your own intellect. And you have to also extricate yourself from the bonds of all of this negative energy that's out there. And it's tough right now because it's been inundating us for the last 2 years. And these 10 days to flatten the curve is still going on. And like I said, in August, over 4 million Americans walked out of their jobs. They just quit. And companies like McDonald's or Walmart or wherever, they're still, I guess, essential. I mean, we've moved the goalpost on that quite a bit as a society and what we accept. Like, you can go into a restaurant, you have to wear a mask, but once you're seated, you can take it off, even if you're seated at a high level. So apparently there's not a lot of real science behind anything going on right now, but we're we're fed this idea of trust the science. So many euphemisms have been appropriated in our society, and we've accepted as a collective in some capacity a sickness as the social norm, because you don't hear the government agencies, you don't hear the big corporations and the pharmaceutical industries, of course, ever talking about preemptive or preventative health measures. All we hear about is like, you better get this jab or you're gonna die, and you're gonna kill somebody else if you don't wear your mask. And they realize they've had to make some concessions on it because these multi-billion-dollar companies, these sports franchises, there's still like a baseball World Series going on right now. There's still like college football, NFL, all that's going in full swing, and they're forcing people right now. We didn't vote for this. This is not part of what we expect in a free society where there's a Bill of Rights and there's a Constitution. We've been left out, y'all. And right now it's up to us to take advantage of, or take the bull by the horns of our own health, and take responsibility for the life that we are leading right now. So that means being healthy, because healthy is a form of rebellion in this sick world that we live in right now. You look around us, and I say this a million times, but there's like over 70% of Americans are overweight and over 40% are obese. And that's not to shame any of those people, because we've been duped. We've been duped on a grand scale. And I'm not saying that I'm better than anyone else because I'm aware of what's going on right now. And I'm sure there's a lot of what's going on right now that I'm completely in the dark about. But one thing I do know, and that can't be denied, is that there are 70% of the people in America that are overweight. And there's 1 in 2 Americans right now are getting cancer in their lifetime. We're being inundated with radiation from 5G. This seems to coincide quite perfectly with this pandemic as well. So it's hard to know I don't want to make false equivalencies or to draw any conclusions, because I'm not a scientist. I'm just a human being with senses like all of you guys. But I believe now more than ever it's time to have critical thinking employed. I mean, everything's being appropriated. Even organic foods are appropriated right now. And you guys, I'm a big purveyor of organic nutrition and getting your gut biome together, because, your gut is the center of your physical temple, your universe of your body. The gut is where it all begins and ends. So get yourself healthy. That's basically the ultimate act of rebellion in today's society. I mean, who wants to rebel? We want to go along with something that's healthy. We want to fall in line with health. We want to fall in line with people who are doing the right thing. But right now, there's so much of the world's collective consciousness is living in a state of fear or a state of ignorance. Ignorance is bliss on some level. Like, a bird doesn't fly around all day thinking about coronavirus. A bird just goes out being a bird. Human beings, we think about all these things. These have inundated our consciousness. So I just implore you guys to get healthy, like whatever it takes to be as healthy as you can be. And then when you get to that level, go beyond that and get even healthier. Protect your family, protect your neighbors, your friends, anyone that's willing to listen to you speak about the truth about being healthy and how important it is, not just wearing a mask and not just going and getting injected with a experimental pharmaceutical protocol, that's being mandated unjustly and unlawfully according to the law of God and the law of nature. I'm not saying there's not good intentions perhaps behind this. I can't imagine that everybody working on this is a bad person. I can't imagine that. I'm certain that not everybody that's gone and gotten vaccinated is a bad person. Of course not. There's a lot of my family. Shit, I've got people that I love that have gotten vaccinated once, twice, 3 times, and I don't feel very much alignment with those people anymore because they are living in a state of fear. I have compassion for them. But right now I'm just looking to align myself with people where I don't feel like I'm crazy or sane in a crazy world. I want to understand that my body, my right to my body is still going to be here. And rebelling against the vaccine is not because I'm rebelling against the man. It's because I'm rebelling against something that's inherently bad in our society, which is we're not promoting health. We're not promoting proper nutrition, proper lifestyle. You never hear about it ever. When I got sick with brain cancer, it was a result, to my mind and my own understanding of my own body, because as it was once said, all knowledge is knowledge of self. It's to my mind that I got sick because of years of ignorance, years of chronic inflammation through poor decisions. Most of us don't even know what we're doing. We're operating this beautiful technology that we have in our own body, and we don't even know. There's no user's manual to it. Most of it is just intuition. It's just the firing of the nodes. Like when a baby calf is born, it knows how to stand and walk. It's something that's inherent through perhaps years of evolution. But right now, if you feel into your heart and you feel into the space that you're in right now, you can tell that something's not right. You can tell that something's not right if you're leading from a place of fear. And the news media says that. There's been like recorded conversations by people who are talking to people at like CNN or other major networks that say things along the lines of, if it bleeds, it leads. They want to captivate your most primal emotions. They want to link into fear. They want to link. There's lots of violence. There's video games of people blowing each other away. It's like, why? Why do we need this? I'm not saying we should have censorship on anything, but why do we need to live in a society? Why do we choose to participate in a society where killing is normal, where we're seeing, police violence on TV all of the time? We're focused heavily on what's wrong with the world. We can see it all around us every day. If you live in a city like I live here in Portland, you can see what's happened over the past few years, especially. But we've been living in an unsustainable world for quite a while, and it's coming to a head. And there's people in power, there's dark forces in power that a lot of us are contributing to, that are taking advantage of this situation that we all helped to create. So right now, we know that there's a problem. We're aware of a lot of these problems. So now we have to ask ourselves, what are we going to do about it? Like, how are we going to navigate it? I think a lot about, like, you hear about the ice caps melting and the oceans rising and global warming or whatever it is. Again, that's fear. But, like, if these things are true, if they are true, and I accept that the world is changing, that human beings are desecrating their own home, like we are contaminating our air and our water and our soil, and it's evident through seeing how much bottled water and garbage drinks there are on the shelves, how much the grocery store, you hear the saying, like, if there's a health food section in the store, well, what's the rest of it then? And I get that. And even the health food stuff is not really health food, most of it, because anyways, it's going to go back at some point, and a lot of people are not going to make the leap into the next jump. And I realize it's not even probably my generation or the next couple generations under me, but the generations after that, the kids now that are born into the mask and into the needle and to all these other measures of, rolling back personal freedoms, health. Because health and freedom are two of the same. I mean, they're all one and the same. They're all connected. Politics is connected to health. Health is everything. It's omnipresent. Health is everything in this life right now. And if we don't have health, what do we have? We do not have happiness. We don't have community. If we're social distancing, which is an oxymoron, how can you be social when you're distancing? If we're not connected to other people as we need to be, that's part of being a human being. If we're isolating more and more, and it might be just like incrementally rolling back, I see it in myself, spending more time inside because everyone outside is masked up. Everyone else outside is a level of division. So whether you're conscious of this new world or not, some people get angry. They make lots of posts about it online. They tell you all the things that are wrong with this politician or that politician, and like it's basically two sides of the same coin. The question I ask you today is, how do we mitigate what's going on in the world right now? How do we navigate this world right now? We know that there's problems. There's always been problems in the world. And if we choose to focus on those problems without a solution based mindset, then we're not going to be able to make any change. So, how do we liberate ourselves? How do we liberate the collective consciousness, or as many people as we possibly can? Well, we start by living in our own truth, being the embodiment of our own truth, and we are a testament of our own truth. We become healthy. You don't want to be part of the 70+% that are overweight in America, or the however many percent of the world that's following in line just because they're told to, not because there is any critical analysis. We've seen through history how propaganda and media can control large numbers of people. We've seen it in the 40s, and this is before we had a global media, a global economy. We didn't have that in the 40s, and we also saw massive, bad things happen in the world in those days. And I'm basically talking about what happened in Europe and Germany, and the Holocaust, and the war, and all the stuff that happened, the wars that we've been endlessly seemingly fighting. That's all you see on the news. But I'm certain that almost every single human being on earth, the vast majority, wants peace. They want freedom. They want health. But we're not employed with the gifts of those things. We're not taught those things. Even I look at my own story, and my mother, I grew up in the woods of Maine, and my mother was an herbalist, and my parents were very mindful of the way we lived, and that's why they moved out to the woods, so that we could get away from what they saw as what's coming on now. Or they didn't know what it was going to look like, but this is what it looks like now, and who knows what it's going to evolve or devolve into moving forward. But even what they knew and how they were able to educate themselves, because we all are self-educated on some level. We can take the information that we're given at face value and just be like, okay, I need to do this. I need to get the needle. I need to take these pills. I need to eat this and buy that. Or we can be like, okay, I'm going to question everything. So the fifth agreement, according to Don Miguel Ruiz, who wrote the Four Agreements, he wrote a fifth agreement that was like, I'm not going to paraphrase it. It was actually like, be skeptical, but be open-minded. So it's basically all life is about balance. And there was a great documentary, a visual art installation documentary by Godfrey Reggio called Noikona Scazzi, which means the world out of balance, or life out of balance. And we see the juxtaposition between industry, and like airplanes, and the deforestation of the Amazon, and just massive amounts of unsustainable practices that human beings have been doing in the name of what is now known as economy, which is not in doesn't coincide with ecology. It's not balanced, it's not renewable, and it's not sustainable. So right now, how can we change the world? Well, Mahatma Gandhi did it with himself, and he started just as a humble person changing India. How can we change the world? Do we believe we have the power? I think it begins with believing that us as individuals can change the world. I know it's going to take more than posting on Instagram or Facebook and these other social media platforms. These are great tools. They're great pieces of the puzzle, but trying to solve a problem you can't solve a problem at the same level of mind that created it. I believe Einstein said that. So if we're trying to solve this technocracy issue, this Facebook, pushing pharmaceuticals down our throat issue, then why are we on Facebook? If we all just collectively walked away and says, I'm not going to do this anymore. I choose peace. I choose light, and I'm not going to continue to give the darkness energy. It's always going to be there, but do I want to participate in it? Do I want to be a part of it? Easier said than done, maybe, but it's all what you believe. Like Napoleon Hill and a lot of these new thought, revolutionists of the early 20th century said, if the mind can conceive it and believe it, then it can achieve it. And that is true. Whatever you believe, wherever your attention goes, the energy flows. And these are all like cliches or euphemisms, but they're true. There's a reason why they've become so popularized. Now, we don't want to popularize things that are detrimental to the collective well-being. So how do we make change? How do we initiate change in this world? Well, obviously all change starts with ourself, the example that we lead, the company that we choose to keep. And, I really look at the Four Agreements. That's a great book. I mean, it's basically four simple principles. You know, don't take anything personal. That's hard, being a person, to not take anything personally. It's about, balancing the ego, not dissolving it, because we all have an ego, and the ego helps us live in this three-dimensional world that we're in. Some of us like to think we're in the fourth dimension. We're moving up, we're ascending. Connection with God, understanding that there is something greater than us. Be impeccable to your word. Like, do you say what you say? Do you do what you do? I don't. I don't always do what I say. A lot of the time I'm a hypocrite, or whatever you want to call it. I go against my own. Hippo meaning less than, critic meaning your criteria, your standards. You're less than your standards. You're a hypocrite. So yeah, we're all hypocrites. So how can we change? How can we change today? Well, we become self-aware without being self-destructive. That's a balance. I think it all distills back to balance. How can we balance this world that we live in today? I say that we balance it by being self-aware, but not being, self-punishing. We accept, we move on, we let go, we acknowledge, we release, we acknowledge, we release. That's all we can do. That's like meditating. When you meditate, you don't become nothing. You let those thoughts come and you let them go, and you just become as one with self as possible. You can't be completely one with self when we're all interconnected, but right now, yeah, that's right, being intentional every moment. But that's not always possible, because 95% of the show is run from our subconscious mind, right? There's a great book that I just read, and I'm going to read again, called The Power of the Unconscious Mind, or The Power of the Subconscious Mind, by Dr. Joseph Murphy, another one of these new thought people. Another great book I read, I forget the author's name right now, but it was called The Master Key System. These all kind of go along the same things, like Neville Goddard, or, like I mentioned before, Napoleon Hill, even Wallace D. Wattles, the Science of Being Rich, or is it The Science of Getting Rich? I can't remember, but those are some great books. But really, you can read all the books you want to, and those are great because the books help to initiate self-awareness. But if we're not implementing the knowledge, it doesn't get to bloom into becoming wisdom, and we all ultimately want to be wise. Wisdom is the practical use of knowledge, and you can have all the knowledge in the world. You can know why eating organic is the right thing to do, why sustainable agriculture is the right thing to do. You can understand all of these principles, but if you're not a living embodiment of these truths that you find to be self-evident, we've heard that phrase before, we find these truths to be self-evident. So are your truths self-evident, or are they externally evident and they are conditioned into your subconscious mind? So much is conditioned into our subconscious mind. There's a great book by Dr. Mark Epstein called The Trauma of Everyday Life, and it talks about how we are all constantly going through traumas, some greater than others. It's not about qualifying them or quantifying them, it's about acknowledging them. Trauma, right? We're all healing generational wounds. We hear this, it sounds like a lot of woo-woo sometimes to some of us on some level. To me it does as well, but it's true. Our parents have been through things that sculpted them, and then they've tried to do better, or maybe they didn't, but most of them, I think, tried to do better, because I believe it's up to most human beings to want to be living in a world of peace and harmony and to be happy. And happy is not possible without healthy. Healthy basically is from the word whole, holistic, healthy, happy, unity, one. So in order to be happy, we have to be healthy. How do we be healthy? Well, it's like that catch and release of those thoughts. You acknowledge the state you're in today, and you're grateful for what you have, but you aren't complacent. You're never complacent. You're always in a change of growth. There is no such thing as homeostasis within the physical, emotional, or spiritual world. Where we are right now is we are in a world where everything is always changing. Again, Einstein had another quote of, I think it's something like, if life is like a bicycle, in order to stay on, you got to keep moving. And that's true with us. We're constantly either in a state of like autophagy, where we're fasting and our cells are dying, or we are in a state of nourishment and our cells are growing. The native proverb about, there's the two wolves, there's the angry wolf, and then there's the loving wolf, and well, which wolf wins? And it's the one that you feed. Do you feed those negative thoughts? When you start to go down a dark road and you start to see darkness and you start to feel anger and your ego, and you want to destroy your enemy and you want to be right. I love speaking in euphemisms and adages and quotes, because would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? Sometimes it's both, and sometimes it's neither. Sometimes you're wrong and you're unhappy, you feel that way. But at the end of the day, it's about self-love and compassion and knowing that you're just a human being. And you can say, I put it in God's hands, but I also have to take responsibility, because people say a lot of the times that I am not going to say I'm God, because that's sacrilegious, and like God is God. God is all controlling. Well, if that's the case, then leave it to God. Leave it to God. Let God run it, But if there's things about yourself that you're not happy with, realize that God is within you. God created you, or whatever you want to call it. That's just words. You can call God whatever you want to call God. You can have your own knowledge based upon your own teachings. But I don't slight anyone that isn't been introduced or doesn't feel the same way as I do, as long as their goal is peace, unity, love, and higher consciousness and connection with other people, health, wholeness, love. That's what God is to me. And it can be whatever it is to you. But I see a lot of people talking about God in our world right now, and there's a lot of anger and God. I think it's because they look at God maybe as a greater picture, as an all-encompassing picture of the nature of life, because there is the yin and the yang, there is the dark and the light. The shadow increases as the light increases, and the inverse is true. So think about it right now, how dark these times seem for a lot of people. Well, to that, there's a lot of good. There's a lot of change happening. Sometimes you have to go through a breakdown before you go through a breakthrough. Things have to fall apart. Like building a muscle, you have to like break the muscle apart a little bit before it grows back stronger. And it's about consistency, self-awareness, and just keep moving. A body in motion stays in motion. A body at rest will stay at rest. That's the law of inertia. We have to continue to move forward. If we get to stagnate and we get to rest on the things that we've known our whole life, the things that we've believed for our entire life, and a lot of those served us for a long time. I've learned a lot about this through studying internal family systems work, which I wouldn't put it on a pedestal, but it's an interesting way of looking at things and analyzing reality. Again, the word analyzing kind of has a negative connotation to me because it has like anal right in it. But like, are you being anal? Like, or are you analyzing? Are you being like critical? But these words can mean, they have different connotations based upon how they're being used. Like persuasion can be seen as you're trying to trick somebody, or persuasion could be you're trying to encourage somebody to do something that's in their own best interest. And that comes from a place of compassion. And compassion means with suffering. Passion means suffering. Buddhism teaches us that to live is to suffer. Look, the gravity is pulling down on us at all times. We're always being pulled down, and we are standing up against that. It's two forces acting against each other that need to be acting against each other in order for there to be balance and equilibrium. So eventually the force of gravity wins, but does it? Because now we know that there's black holes, there's places where there's antimatter. We know that there's time-space continuums. We know that there's, wormholes. We know that there's all these different things now so every truth has an equal and opposite truth, right? So everything that you think to be absolutely true, think of what is the most absolutely true thing in your life. There's an argument against that that's valid. Everything. So some people like to play devil's advocate. I do it on myself a lot. I like to think about why I would be wrong in every situation, but it's that overthinking, it's that over-analysis that becomes catabolic in ourselves. And so we have to be very careful to not go too far down the hole, the destructive hole. Self-love, but also allowing ourselves to suffer, because when we suffer, when we go through, why do people willingly go to the gym to, hurt when you start going to the gym, or you start a new diet, or you start a new lifestyle? People give up on it because it's hard. It takes repetition to create new patterns and to create new habits. And then even when you get to that world where you have that aha breakthrough moment and you reach another level of like a higher version of yourself, well, there's just that much further to fall. So I like to say I'm getting to the top of that mountain, and the mountain never ends. Like, there's no finish line. You just keep going. You just keep going until your physical manifestation of yourself dies in whatever way. The pieces of you fall apart, and matter can neither be created nor destroyed. I think that was Einstein again. So who knows? Everything that you think to be true is likely completely false, but also completely true as well, because you can have both. You can have it all. You can eat cake. Let them eat cake. So that's a few thoughts today, you guys. I encourage you, though, because, my mission is to help people to realize their own power and their own potential. I've been through a lot of shit in my life. I know all you guys out there watching me have been through your own shit in your own life. We've all gone through a level of suffering. I tell people I had a brain cancer, a brain tumor, and I've been through epilepsy. Everybody's had their own story, though. Even if you haven't had any serious health conditions, some people, I've been lucky. I've been trying to avoid suffering my whole life, and look at where it's got me, even more suffering sometimes. You try to drown out the suffering with drink or drug or sex or food or whatever it is that triggers the dopamine centers in your brain. You try to numb it out so that you don't have to suffer. Well, in the end, that leads to even more suffering. So it's that sort of paradox of all of it, is that just to feel the feels, cry when you need to. If you're angry, be angry, but strive towards what you will become, what you want to be. The reality is what you set your focus on. And for me, I know that feeding the human body optimally, not just with food, which is important in the physical manifestation, but also surrounding yourself with people who nourish your soul and make you feel good. And check yourself. Do I feel good because I'm taking and it's about my ego and about this momentary, I've got my money and I've got my things in my material world? Or is it because I am of a place of service? Sometimes to get it all, you got to let it all go. You got to give it all away. So I encourage people to give to other people And in that, there's also a balance. There's an opposite reality where there's people that'll just take, and they'll just take. And so having to form healthy boundaries is essential. And we learn these things every day. You can be 80 years old and still be making mistakes. But repetition is the mother of all skill. So hopefully, as we grow older, the more trips around the sun that we make, if that's what's actually happening, I honestly couldn't prove to you scientifically on a chalkboard, but I still believe that the world is round. I don't know, though. Who knows? That's a whole nother ball of wax, y'all. So anyways, if it's flat, I'll admit it. I don't know. If I'm wrong about all of this, I'll admit it. That's the thing. You have to be willing to accept an equal and opposite truth in whatever it is that you believe. It doesn't mean that you have to get catabolic and beat yourself up over not having all the answers, because the beauty in this whole thing is there are no absolutes. There's just the isness of the business of the isness, y'all. You are what you are. You can create this world any way you want to. That's the beautiful thing. You're like the sculptor. You can sculpt the world how you want it. Most of us don't even fully recognize, at least consciously and subconsciously, that we have the ability to be creative with our lives and to become to become whatever we want to become. Really, we do. If we really want something, you know that whenever you've really wanted something that mattered, if it's a matter of life and death, you'll do it. Typically, unless you're like cognitively dysfunctional or you're like suicidal or self-destructive, most normal, healthy-ish, in any capacity, human beings they're out to be happy, they're out to be healthy, they're out to commune with other souls, they're out to love animals, they're out to appreciate nature, because these are all things that sustain our own well-being and our own life. The trees, why wouldn't you love plants? They're there to nourish us. Through their exhale, we get our inhale, and vice versa. So it's all about symbiosis. It's all about connection with nature and reminding ourselves that we are nature. All of this stuff, all this glyphosate and atrazine and plastics and pollution and all of the state of the ocean, the seaspiracy, whatever, the darkness, the light, the good, the bad, it's all nature. It's all we are all part of it. So we create it. If we change our minds today, if I change my minds, because think about it, I'm the only one behind the wheel. Now, there's other theories like I wake up, I blink my eye and I'm someone else. Every blink of my eye, I become somebody else. I become some different form in a different dimension, a different reality where there's different rules, and Einstein is not even a thing, and his rules don't apply to me, or this Newtonian physics are not real, whatever. But from what we know right now, and I'm sure maybe I'm creating this reality that I'm talking into right now, and that's fine. If that's the case, then I have even more power. So with great power comes great responsibility. Well, with great responsibility comes great power. So if you put more responsibility on your life, that means you're a leader. That means you have more influence. That means you have more say on how the world is. If you are not taking responsibility, you have little power. So right now, if you decide that you want to create a reality for yourself from a place of love, because most people that are angry and sad and have upsetment, they don't want that. That's just their coping mechanism. That's the only way they know how to handle that situation. That's the only way we know how to handle that situation, is by being hurt or being upset or being mad, because that's how we were conditioned. And again, the subconscious mind is running the show with that, because probably our parents did that, or our teachers, or our greatest influences when we were young, when we were most malleable. So now we come to light to realize I can change this. And it doesn't happen overnight. You can't unweave and extricate yourself from that whole world of, where you were before overnight. But it's about practice, having a practice. And what helps for me is to write things down. If you write it down and follow up, it's true of business, it's true of relationship, it's true of self-awareness, it's true of self-development. If you are constantly journaling progress and you're focusing on your goal, what's your goal? When I healed myself from epilepsy and brain cancer, it was because I kept a log every day. This is when I'm having my seizures. It's like multiple a day, 10 a day. This is the drugs I was taking. This is the practices. These are my notes. Every day I would be vigilant about doing that. And it didn't happen quickly. It took like 5 years. And after 5 years, I noticed change. And I was like, wow, holy shit. Like, I didn't even know that. I didn't see that happening while it was happening. But now it's happened. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for that because, it was hard. There was many times where I thought about how can I just leave this life? How can I just die? And I wasn't like, I want to kill myself. I don't like being alive. I want to live. I want to be happy. Like, I made a decision. I want to be happy. If that's not that kindling at the bottom of your flame, that you want to be happy, you want to thrive and live well, I don't really know how to speak onto that. There's some deeper stuff. But if you actually do love being alive and you have some great moments, a lot of people in our society now, they'll call themselves bipolar, this or that. They'll be like, I'm up here, I'm manic one moment, and then I'm like super depressed and angry and fucked up the next moment. And that's how they self-identify. And the more they become self-identify with that sort of mindset, and the more the pharmaceutical industry or whatever starts to say, well, we're going to diagnose you with this condition, ADHD, you've got DDD, the LMNOP, whatever it is. And then the person starts to become, okay, I'm going to internalize that. And my subconscious mind is going to grab hold of that. And that is my identity. I am this person. And they're not even conscious of it anymore. And a lot of it starts with an imbalance in the food system because people are eating sugar and acidic foods and all kinds of stuff that's disrupting the endocrine system of the body or whatever we know to be our hormonal balance in our body, our brain, our gut, and our heart. And it's all out of equilibrium right now in today's world. And if we don't take hold of that right now, we don't take control of that right now, man, it's going to be harder and harder as you get older and older. It's like, as they say, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. That's true. But on the other hand, neuroplasticity can happen at any age. And I'm proof of it because into my 40s, I was able to heal my brain. And that's possible. It's not that the tumor went away completely, the scars from the radiation therapy and the chemotherapy went away. It's that you can retool your brain. You can build new neural pathways. It's basically neurons that fire together, wire together. So why do you think a person that practices guitar every day can just do it effortlessly? Why is it that I can speak without thinking about how I'm conjugating every single word that's coming out of my mouth? It's because practice. What are you practicing every day? Are you practicing the feeling of feeling shitty? Are you practicing victim mindset every day? Unwillingly look at yourself critically, but with compassion. That's the key. Critically, but with compassion. Like, I'm going to look at myself. Okay, what did I do today? Did I have a fight with somebody that I love? I did. It happened to me yesterday with someone I'm dear to. So, well, is there a boundary that needs to be established? Or is there something that I can acknowledge in myself that can make the situation better? There's 3 choices. Everybody that's been through or listened to the Serenity Prayer or been to Alcoholics Anonymous, it's the 3 choices basically, right? Change what you can change, accept what you can't change, and ask God for the wisdom to know the difference between those 2. So change what you can or accept what you can't. And beyond that, you just have to have the wisdom to know the difference between those 2 things. And I think that's hyper true. So that's all I've got for you guys today. Feels good to get that off my chest because I've been going through a few things lately, and it feels good to share because I am a hypocrite. We all are. But again, it's not about beating ourselves up. It's not about puffing our feathers too far. It's not about having a big ego. It's not about having no ego. It's about balance. Everything is about balance. And things are never perfectly balanced ever because it's like they go a little this way, a little that way. But hopefully they're not like, because then that's whack. And it's like, oh my God, I'm like way out of balance. And at that point, that's when you start to feel crazy, and that's where you start to feel like you're losing control. Um, so, ways of getting your body and life and health and mental and spiritual self into balance is like accept that all of the things that you believe could be wrong and are wrong on some level to some person. And with that said, though, have trust in what you believe, have conviction in what you believe. Doesn't mean that you have to be like, I'm right and everyone else is wrong. My religion's right and yours is wrong. People that are spiritual are phony, or people that are into Jesus are crazy, or whatever it is. Like, God is within us all. God created us. A greater force, whatever you want to call it, or however you want to understand it, created you, created me, created all of this. And you have free will. Maybe you don't. Maybe you think you do and you don't. Who knows? I don't know. So everything I could say, there's an equal and opposite reality to that. But you can choose the reality that you want to go with. Hopefully that's one of compassion. Hopefully that's one of acceptance of other people. Hopefully if you see somebody walking down the street that's wearing a mask, and maybe they've had vaccines, and you're a person like me that doesn't believe in that right now, that you will not be mean to that person. It's easy to be mean. It's easy to I can understand why a black person during the 1950s or whenever would be angry at white people because of the complacency in society and the injustice in the world. That's an example, but anything like that, you can understand why people would allow anger into their heart. It takes great minds and great hearts. Like someone like Martin Luther King Jr., right? He wasn't calling for separation. He was calling for love and equality and peace. And that's the only way forward. And look, he got murked for it, right? Because sometimes you pay with your life when you're living your ultimate truth. But we don't have to be martyrs. I don't think most martyrs want to die. So don't be like this martyr symptom where you're have a victim complex and you want to be like, oh, woe is me. I'm such my life is so hard. Everybody's born with what they're born with. And then from there, you get that hand, you have to play that hand. And so hopefully you play it as optimally as possible. Learn the game. If it's cribbage, you got to know what your best odds are. Play your most optimal hand. Don't throw your best cards into the crib. It's just a game after all, y'all. Life is a game, and it's worth playing, because who knows what's after this. You can create whatever you want to today. Today you can start creating the world that you want to. It's early enough in the day right now, and if you don't get it today, go to bed early, set your intentions, and tomorrow you can make it happen. But don't continually say tomorrow, 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 tomorrow. Start working on yourself today, even if it's the most incremental changes that are going to improve your life. And you're never too old or too young to start your life again and to reformulate yourself. People are not going to all understand you. There's going to be people that don't like this new version of you. But if you like it and you can live with it and you sleep good at night being that version of yourself, then go for it, especially if it's not harming anyone else. Everything we do does harm somebody or something else on some level. Just being alive contributes to taking resources from somewhere for us, for ourselves, for our body, for our physical self. But live with it. Accept the fact that life is pain and suffering, and that there is a purpose behind all this, or there's not. See what I did right there? Equal and opposite. Everything is true and everything is made up. So I like to think that I have powers to create the world that I want to. And it's easy to get stuck in a pattern when you've seemingly lived a similar day over and over again. You can move to a new physical environment or different space or travel, but you're still inside yourself, and the collection or the accumulation of all of the experiences that you've had over the last 90 days is the result of who you are right now. So if you want to change, work on doing something completely different for the next 90 days that's positive, that moves you towards a place of health, a place of peace, a place of service, and a heart set of gratitude. Because when we do that, we'll find a better life for ourselves. You know, I'm definitely a lot happier today than I was 5 years ago. That's for sure. I was in a bad physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual way. But if I hadn't gone through that, I may have never evolved to where I am now. You know, I had to devolve to evolve, you know? So, yeah, make the world you want. You got the power, y'all. 11:11 in the Central Time Zone, 9:11 here on the West. Thanks for tuning in, you guys. I love you all. Have a great day.